It's not enough research time to do the research because it's just always more to research. You know, I just keep going. Last week we started with surviving the 70s. Today we're going to venture into survival in the 80s. Let's start with scripture. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 18, verse 15. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 15.
Is the book of Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 15. The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge.
So prudent is looking ahead, looking behind, and learning from different things, right? Prudent. Can I get the definition of prudent? See, there I go already. Can I get the definition of prudent? You got me, Adonai? I don't have to wait for them. What's prudent? Read that thing again, Hez, while we look it up.
Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 15.
Yeah.
The heart of the prudent getteth knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeketh knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
A man's gift maketh room for him, and bringeth him before great men.
So a man's gift, meaning whatever your talents are, if you really feed into those things and embrace those things, it'll bring you amongst great men. You got prudent? What do it mean? Okay, I got it. Prudent. It says characterized by, arising from, or showing prudency. That's horrible. Such as marked by wisdom or judiciousness. Shrewd in management of practical affairs, marked by circumspection. I like that, circumspect. You got to be circumspect in all things. Let me say it one more time. It says characterized by, arising from, or showing prudency, such as marked by wisdom. Wisdom is taking information and really learning how to utilize that information. So looking at the 70s, looking at the 80s, we should be able to look at these things and learn from them and make better decisions in 2021. We should be able to look at the 70s, look at the 80s, and make better decisions for our life, for our family, for our children, because of prudency. So, the 70s last week, we discussed things like busing, the busing system. What else did we talk about? Gangs, the opioid epidemic. I believe they was using syrup. My dad told me they was sipping on syrup back in the 70s. The KKK was still pretty big. What you got, Ananias?
We definitely was talking about the cocaine use.
Cocaine use.
And heroin.
Heroin use, yep. What else was going on in the 70s? What else, Aunt? What did we miss? I know we missed some stuff. You was texting me. I missed some stuff.
The integration into neighborhoods and stuff like that.
The integration of neighborhoods, right. The busing system, that thing messed everything up. Made educating our black men and black women, our Hispanic men, Hispanic women, made it very hard, that busing system. So to close out the 70s, right, one things I forgot. Let's go to Matthew 24:24 real quick. Well, go ahead.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 24.
Yeah.
For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
So a lot of our people have been deceived by false prophets. One of the false prophets of the 70s that I meant to touch on, I forgot, but I just want to make sure I clear it up, is this guy right here. So pull it up, go to 245. Some of y'all may not have never heard of this guy, but our people went down to Guyana with this guy.
Back at the commune, Jones gathered his followers for a final sermon.
We've had as much of this world as you're going to get. Let's just be done with it. Let's be done with the agony of it.
This time, Jones served a punch spiked with cyanide. More than 900 died, 300 of them children. Jones shot himself.
We know from autopsies conducted later that a considerable number of people were held and forcibly injected with the poison.
In the end, how many relatives did you lose?
I lost 11 relatives.
Wagner Wilson and her 3-year-old lived because they were...
So this thing was called Jonestown, right? Over 900 people died, 300 children. This was what, 78, 79 right there? This guy named Jim Jones killed 900 people in a mass suicide. They all drank this Kool-Aid. So if you go back to before back earlier in this video, I didn't write down the minute mark, but he would give them the drink all the time and be like, I tricked y'all, it wasn't really nothing in there. So they had already been kind of conditioned to drink this juice with the thought it was cyanide in it, but it would never be. And then this time it actually was. Killed them all. Let's go to this. You got something, and I go ahead.
So this was November 18, 1978. It says 918 people died of this thing, but not all 918 people died from drinking the juice.
Right, he injected some of them.
What he also did was, there's a movie called Guyana Tragedy.
Yep.
Tragedy. If you look that movie up, it'll pretty much give you detailed information as to what happened. They started seeing people dropping. Say we gave you guys some juice, right? And all of a sudden, Sister Eliza drops off, and then Shobek drops off, and then people start, and you looking around and be like, oh, wait a minute, this is real this time.
Yeah.
And obviously they got people with assault weapons, like standing over there with Nehemiah is making sure that they drinking this juice. So a lot of people died by gunfire because they were like, I ain't gonna do that.
Right.
And it was like, they'll kill him.
Dang. Let's pull up Jim Jones right quick. Let's pull him up. I think I pulled him up. You had something, Holy App, that you want to mention?
No, I just wanted to say this is where they got the term, he drank the Kool-Aid.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
This is where it came from.
Yep. That's where it came from. That's why I ask people that sometimes when they come here. I say, well, we a crazy cult? You know what I'm saying? Don't drink the Kool-Aid if we crazy. You know what I'm saying? I ask people that. Let's pull up Jim Jones right quick just so we can kind of see who he is. Let's go down to, I posted it in there. Just pull him up at the top. We'll just read the top real quick. Okay, it says James Warren Jones was an American cult leader, preacher, and self-professed faith healer. He launched the People's Temple in Indiana during the 1950s. Jones and his inner circle orchestrated a mass murder-suicide of himself and his followers in his jungle commune at Jonestown, Guyana on November 18, 1978. So like we just heard, over 900 of our people died. Let's go to this. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28, verse 15. Deuteronomy 28, verse 15.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 15.
Yeah.
But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So during the 70s, we were a cursed people. During the 80s, guess what? We was a cursed people. During the 90s, we're going to find out we was a cursed people. But right now, we're just going to focus in on the 80s and figure out what happened. Let's read 28, verse 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 28.
Yeah.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness.
With what?
With madness.
With madness. Go ahead.
And blindness.
How crazy, how mad do you have to be to go into the jungle with Jim Jones, a crazy white man? How blind and foolish must you be to do that? Read that again.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart.
It's astonishing the amount of people that went and did that. I don't know. I do not get it. I don't get the charismaticness or anything. But like we always say, Christianity is a hell of a drug, and that's what he was teaching. You know what I'm saying? It was through Christianity he taught this mass suicide. You know, and little it be beknownst to our own people that Christianity is literally leading most of our people to a mass destruction when Christ returns. That's what it's leading them to. He just got them there a little bit early. But if you believe on white Jesus, oh, that's where you're headed. Let's go to the Miami video, 424. So during the 80s, now we transition to the 80s. Matter of fact, before you go to that, I posted a link in there. It should say the 80s, I think. Yep, there you go, the 80s. All right, there you go. The 80s, pronounced 1980s, shortened the 80s. a decade of Gregorian calendar that began January 1st, 1980 and ended December 31st, 1989. It was the 9th decade of the 20th century. The decade saw major socio-economic changes due to advances in technology and a worldwide move away from planned economics and towards laissez-faire capitalism. So the stock market and all those different things took off to a new level during the 1980s. Go ahead. You're shaking your head. Go ahead. What you got?
Oh, wait. You're
No, go
say
ahead. No, go ahead.
That economic time came from drugs, money going into the banks, and nobody checking that money that was going in. It was just tons of money going into the banking system at that time. Right,
and they did things. They did things specifically to eliminate the income that was coming into our areas. Right, Reagan was the president of that time. He had a lot of tax cuts and a lot of government cuts that they made to what they do so-called balance the budget. And most of those economic decisions was based off of black man, Hispanic man. They cut food stamps. They cut socioeconomic Medicare for our people. That's what they did. And that infrastructure that was kind of there was destroyed in reference to how we were surviving. You had something tonight? No? Okay, cool. All right, let's go to Miami. And let's go to minute 424. Let's go to Matthew 24. And we'll start at verse 4. Matthew 24, verse 4. And on the Miami video, I want us to start at 424. Read this first.
The book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 24.
Yeah.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you.
Yep.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ.
And when we looked at James Jones, that's the type of stuff he was telling his people. Go ahead.
And shall deceive many.
And so do what?
And shall deceive many.
And shall deceive many. So in the 1980s, guess what they was doing? Killing black men, unarmed, for no reason. That was happening in the 80s. Go ahead, click play on this thing.
Residents of one neighborhood said that during the peak of the rioting Sunday night, they watched in amazement as a group of city policemen vandalized more than a dozen automobiles in a parking lot, smashing windows.
Pause it. Who was doing and leading the riots out there? Go back to 424 again. Listen to what they just said. Who was doing that thing again? Who was doing it?
Residents of one neighborhood said that during the peak of the rioting Sunday night, they watched in amazement as a group of city policemen vandalized more than a dozen automobiles in a parking lot.
Dang. The police was out there vandalizing during the riots. Go ahead, hit play.
Smashing windows with billy clubs and rifles, then spray painting the cars. Officials say their initial investigation tends to confirm the charges and that they will try to identify and punish the officers involved.
You can pause it. You can pause it. So even back here when we would loot and riot, guess what? Amongst that you would have those, what do Bishop call them, provocateurs that would instigate and take things to a way higher level. We was mad. We was upset. Yeah, we was out there protesting. But then the police come in and they start vandalizing. Read Matthew 24:24 again.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 24.
No, verse 4. I'm sorry.
Verse 4.
Yeah.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you.
Take heed that no man deceive you. Our people, they try to perpetuate through the news that, oh, we was out there doing the looting and the violence and the rioting. And I'm not saying we were completely absolved from this stuff, but we see here that the other nations, them police officers was out there doing that and putting that crime on us. And we like, hold on, man, that's police over there doing that. That ain't us. Let's go to that. Let's go to Sirach. Never trust thy enemies. Where that's at?
12.
Go ahead to it.
The book of Sirach, chapter 12 and verse 10.
Yeah.
Never trust thine enemy.
Yep.
For like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness.
So is his wickedness. And I just was watching that brother that did American Skin and Birth of a Nation, he was talking about, you know, the original formation of police was something called patty rollers. And that thing was introduced during the time of slavery when we would try to escape. That's what they would do. They would come out and chase us down. So those same people that was enforcing us and keeping us in slavery are now the same people that you call police today. Same people. Let's go back to Matthew 24 again. Verse 4.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 4.
Yeah.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
Let's go back to Deuteronomy 28 again now. We're going to go back to Deuteronomy 28, and we're going to look at verse 28 one more time.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 28.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me get there with you. Hold on. Numbers, Deuteronomy. Okay, go ahead.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart.
Yep.
And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
Yep.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
So it was something called the war on drugs, the war on crime. Let's pull up, it should be the video with, should be a sister. I'm talking about we moving into the war on drugs and crime during the 80s.
So, like you said, that was the Reagan era, and you know, Nancy Reagan was supposedly the big advocate against anti-drugs.
Just say no.
Just say no.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that a little bit. But that was her big push. Just say no. Meanwhile, crack and all these other drugs are being moved into our neighborhoods. When you look at the news back in the 80s, I pretty much, that was my prime time coming up in the 80s.
That's what you called it? Prime time.
Prime time. Yeah. You know, I remember the most in the 80s. And here in San Diego, suburban San Diego,
right,
it was horrible. Drugs was like on every street corner. You know, the crack era was at an all-time high in the mid-'80s going into the mid-'90s, I believe. But the 80s, it was really bad. People were getting killed. We talk about when the term crack kills is not really talking about the drug, because people didn't really die of crack cocaine. What was killing people was people, when they take that drug, they say the drug typically takes about 2 minutes to take effect in your system. And it only lasts for about 6 minutes.
Yep.
And then after that 6 minutes, you're craving more.
Let's go to it. It's 129. The last video I just sent, the Griot, War on Drugs. So this is one of Nixon's aides that was at the end of the 70s, moving into the 80s. And like we was talking about, is that a lot of the things that they put in place during the 70s affected us moving into the 80s, right? They put things like busing in place, right? The war on drugs, the war on crime. These things were put in place in the 70s, but we're going to see the effects of it in the 80s. Go ahead.
Or quote from an aide to President Nixon has surfaced claiming that the war on drugs had everything to do with race and politics.
Pause it. The war on drugs had everything to do with race and politics. The war on drugs, it'll make you think like, oh man, I'm against the war. I'm against drugs. Let's war against that. I'm against crime. Let's war against that. But what they was really saying was something completely different. This is what they call dog whistle politics, where they say something, but it means something completely different. But only those that's in tune with that pitch knows exactly what they're talking about. You know what I'm saying? Dog whistle politics. Go ahead. Start it over again. Where I was at, 129, start it over.
Quote from an aide to President Nixon has surfaced claiming that the war on drugs had everything to do with race and politics. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. Now, 4 decades later, the way we tell...
Pause it. When he say disrupt those communities, he means kill those people. That's what disrupts mean. It don't mean like I don't know. What's the definition of disrupt? They say disrupt those communities. Let's hear what disrupt means. We could disrupt those communities. I want to know what disrupt means. Ananias pulling it up. I posted one last week. I think his name was Lee Atwater. Get that one ready too. I don't think I posted it this time. Okay, disrupt. It says disturb, disrupting, disruptor, to break apart, rupture, to throw into disorder, to interrupt the normal course of unity, to cause upheaval. Go ahead. That's good. That's good. All of those are good. Let me read it one more time so we can understand when he says we want to disrupt that community. Disrupt means to break apart or rupture, to throw into disorder. They threw our communities into disorder through the war on drugs, through the war on crime. To interrupt the normal course of unity. It destroyed the course of unity. You got half the people on one side saying, yeah, war on drugs, war on crime. And then you got another group of people that's actually dealing with the ill effects of that. And again, I'm not saying it's an excuse to rob, steal, murder, do drugs. But the poverty that they put in place through the Reagan administration and those, we'll get to those next. We'll get to those next. Can I get that Lee Atwater quote? I think I just said it, and he's still doing this. Lee Atwater. Thanks. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. What did we just read again?
Verse 29.
Read that again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29.
Yep.
And thou shalt grope at noonday,
yep,
as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
Thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. Here it come.
And thou shalt be only oppressed.
We'll be oppressed
and spoiled.
And disrupted is the word that they use. Oppressed and spoiled.
Evermore.
Forever. No matter what we do, that's what we was dealing with. You got the video, man? Go ahead and hit play on that thing when you're ready. (1981).
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract you handle the race thing. In other words, you start out, and now y'all aren't quoting me on this. All right, I won't hear it. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts your backfire, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes, and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me?
Pause that thing.
Because obviously said.
Pause that thing. So he said in the 50s, they say things like, nigga, nigga, nigga. We hate the Negroes. That's how the politics would go when they would be running for office. Those are the things that we say or that they would say. And then when they moved to the 80s, they would say things like cutting taxes, cutting aid, war on drugs, war on crime. They say things like that. Now it's abstract. They no longer have to say, we hate Negroes. They no longer have to say that now. Let's go to, I believe I sent it to you. It should say the war on drugs. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. War on drugs. Let's see what that is. So war on drugs is a global campaign led by the U.S. federal government of drug prohibition and military aid and military intervention. So they say, look, the U.S. is leading this. So behind the scenes, what was truly happening is that Ronald Reagan and the CIA were importing drugs from South America and bringing it here at the same time saying war on drugs. They was doing that simultaneously. I want you to go to, bring me Godfather. We shall only be oppressed and spoiled. Go ahead. Hit play on that thing. Watch this. Watch what the movies was like in the 80s. Listen to what they said.
I also don't believe in drugs. For years, I paid my people extra so they wouldn't do that kind of business. Somebody comes to them and says, I have powders. If you put up $3,000, $4,000 investment, we can make $50,000 distributing. So they can't resist. I want to control it as a business, to keep it respectable. I don't want it near schools. I don't want it sold to children. That's an infamia. In my city, we would keep the traffic in the dark, people, the colored. They're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls.
Pause it. He said we gonna keep it in they're the black people. They animals anyway. Yeah. This is what was going. See, this is a movie, but this is what was going on in American politics. This is why we were oppressed and spoiled. The system was created to do that. I think I posted something about the, it should be the, how did they call it? The 1980s bill for, dang, what was it? It was, hold on, let me find it. Go ahead, and I'll say something. Let me find this right quick. Go ahead, feel free. Take it to go where you're going.
Let's go to, real quick, let's go to Hosea chapter 3 and 4, because one thing that is with our people is imagery. We have no image. We have nobody to look to. So we get caught up in the Jonestowns. We get caught up in the crack eras. We get caught up in everything that the other nations are throwing at us because we have nothing to look forward to. In the 80s, we started kind of a little bit of light transition into having an image, but it wasn't the true image. It wasn't an image of people keeping the commandments, but it was black, Hispanic people in positions of authority and positions of power. Read that in Hosea real quick.
The book of Hosea, chapter 3 and verse 4. For the children of Israel shall abide many days without a king, without a prince, and without a sacrifice, and without an image, and without an ephod, and without a teraphim.
So what I really want to focus in is like without an image. Without an image, we're lost. We're lost as a people because we have nothing to look to. That's why we go to this false crisis that the white image of Christ. We look at these leaders as gods. You know, when it says you should not worship, what does it say? Many other false Christs shall come. When it's saying false Christ, it's not really necessarily always talking about people talking religion. We look at these people as our gods.
Yep.
And that's how we get caught up in all these different cocaines and the cocaine, the heroin, and the crack era, you know. So you find what you want. Yeah, because I'm struggling right here.
It's okay.
But that's where I didn't want to really get into this because I know we're going to go into
No. I mean, the thing that I was trying to find, and I can't remember where I sent it, but what Reagan did, again, is that he wanted to balance the budget, right? That's what he said. But what that did was it took the money out of our communities. You know what I'm saying? So where they made the cuts were towards our people. They didn't make cuts anywhere else. And so the effect of those cuts was now we don't have any money to feed ourselves. So now we in this place where we're oppressed. We don't have any way to feed ourselves. We stuck in this system where it's like this is our only option. This is the only product in our neighborhood to sell. The stores are broke down. There's nothing in there to sell. We gotta sell drugs. That was the thought process.
And the drugs had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
We don't have any connections to the what is it, cocaine?
To Nicaragua.
What's the plant called? This is
the coca plant?
Yeah, the coca plant. We have no coca plantations
we
here
have none of those.
in this thing. So that stuff had to come from somewhere.
Yep.
So they take something away, but they give us something that's going to destroy ourselves.
Yep. Okay, let's go here. Let's go to that video that Ananiah posted. Yeah, the crack one. The war on crimes, the war on drugs was about destroying or disrupting, what they say, disrupting the black community. And so during the 80s, they had something called the crack epidemic. Go ahead. Let me know when y'all got it. We'll go to Matthew 24 again. Stay in Matthew 24, and let's look at verse, while they finding it. Just read the next verse. Watch what it say. Watch what God say.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 5.
Yeah.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ.
Yep.
And shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars.
Here we go. You should hear what?
And ye shall hear of wars.
What was the wars we was hearing about? The war on drugs. The war on crime. A lot of times we hear wars, we think, oh, it's talking about something else. No. It's talking about the war against you. Read it again. I don't think they caught it. I don't think they caught it, Ananias. Read it again.
And ye shall hear of wars.
The wars that you heard about on TV back in the 80s, the war on drugs, the war on crime, that was the war against our people. We're surviving in the midst of a war, not even knowing that we at war. We don't even know we at war. We hear the war on drugs, war on crime. We like, oh, that's a good thing. Not knowing the whole purpose of it is to destroy us. Deuteronomy 28 and verse whatever you just read again.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29.
Yes, sir.
And thou shalt grope at noonday.
Yes, sir. We groping at noonday. We hearing on the news, oh, man, it's a war on drugs. They going to clean up our communities. War on crime. Yes. Get the crackheads off the street. Go ahead.
As the blind gropeth in darkness.
But we blind. We completely blind to the whole dog whistle politics that's in place. Go ahead.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways.
Yes.
And thou shalt be only oppressed.
We was oppressed.
And spoiled evermore.
And evermore. We hear the war on drugs. We're like, yes. It should have been, oh, dang. They coming after us. Go ahead. Get your mic ready, Ananias. It's you. I got you. Go ahead, hit play. Was it a specific area you wanted them to start? Okay, go ahead, hit play.
Enterprising dealers went further, developing a form of cocaine that was even cheaper and packed a lot more punch.
This is it. The drug so powerful it will empty the money from your pockets, make you sell the watch off your wrist, the clothes off your back.
Or kill your mother. Yep, that's what we're seeing.
On the streets of New York, it's called crack, and the deals go down quickly. You've just witnessed a buy. This form of cocaine comes concentrated. It is smoked rather than sniffed. It produces an intense high within 5 to 10 seconds that lasts only 5 to 10 minutes and leaves the user craving for more.
So you'll notice that the neighborhoods that this drug ran rampant was in our neighborhoods.
That's what we just seen in Godfather.
Right.
He said sell it to the blacks. They animals anyway.
Exactly.
That's the same thing the U.S. government was saying.
And it's made from the same material as cocaine, but is mixed with so many other
chemicals
that it makes it cheaper.
Yep.
And it gives you more of addiction.
Yep.
Keep going.
This is the most addicting thing that probably ever existed in the world, you know? It will make you a slave.
This is not one socioeconomic group using this
drug.
This
that.
isn't
Pause that.
What did he say?
What did he just say?
He said it would run it back. I wanted him to say it again before we even touch on that.
Just 2 seconds. Just go back, not that far. Yeah, right there. That's good.
Probably ever existed in the world, you know?
Oh, you got to go back.
It will make you a slave.
This is not one socioeconomic group.
So he's letting you know that this drug, this little tiny drug that you just smoke, that takes literally only he's going to get into that too, 2 minutes for it to really take effect.
Yep.
Turns you into a slave.
Turns you into a slave. And that was the whole point of the Willie Lynch letters. Again, the same curses that we dealt with at the beginning when we came over here, they kept coming through the decades. It just came in different forms, different ways. They were still making slaves out of us all the way back here. Go ahead.
It was a form of control and a way to kill us.
Yep.
It was a way to control us, to keep us in the specific neighborhoods, but I didn't think they anticipated it to go as bad as it really went.
I think they did. It said they want to disrupt the community.
But it kind of went outside of the community.
Well, that's why the scriptures say that they tongue will fall on themselves.
That's true. That's true.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's go.
Hold on, Holy Advent.
So I saw it from another standpoint.
Yeah.
I saw it from the banking standpoint because I was in the bank at the time, and they would let certain people deal to our community, and that money would flow in. But then they would come after them and end up sending those guys that they would give the drugs to, send them to jail. And so that was another form of slavery because they allowed them to sell the drugs, and then after a while, when they got too big,
now we got to take them down.
Now we got to take them down.
Now we got to take them down. Go ahead, hit play.
You're a slave.
This is not one socioeconomic group using this drug. This isn't rich folks or poor folks. It's rich folks and poor folks. And it's blacks, whites, Hispanics. It's across the board. I have never seen a situation like this.
Stop. Is what? Back that up just a little bit. I wanted to...
This is not one socioeconomic group using this drug. This isn't rich folks or poor folks. It's rich folks and poor folks. And it's blacks, whites, Hispanics. It's across the board. I have never seen...
That's a lie. So he said it's across the board. It's blacks. He could have just went straight to Hispanics. Those are the people that are really affected. He kind of, at first I didn't think he said whites, but he kind of like mumbled that in there.
Yep.
So it wasn't really whites. It was some whites that were living in that neighborhood, but it never got to the La Joyas, to the La Mesas, to the all the upper realms, all the cities.
All the cities. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm from Dallas. You know, I saw it in Oak Cliff. I saw it in Pleasant Grove. I saw it in Southside, but guess what? It wasn't in Arlington.
Right.
It wasn't in DeSoto. It wasn't in Prairie View. I mean, it wasn't in those areas. Nah, absolutely not.
Exactly. Go ahead.
A situation like this where a drug has mushroomed so quickly and gotten such a grip on large segments of the population.
Suddenly, the war on drugs took on a whole new meaning. Crack had its greatest appeal among society.
Generation, most of these people are using crack, using drugs, and it just causes them to do weird things, strange things. You know, kill you for a $10 rock, crack rock. They kill you for anything at all, and not think twice about it.
There have been 4 drug-related murders since the first of the year on Drake Place. Disturbances almost nightly.
Uzis, machine guns, you name it.
Spend a day in these neighborhoods of projects and modest homes, and you're overwhelmed by the drug sweeps and pushers. So are the people who live here.
Why do you think so many people are getting killed?
From drugs. From drugs.
Why though? What happens?
It's the drugs, the crack, the drugs, the crack.
I tell my children your father
stop.
was
This is where I wanted to get to. When they had the term crack kills, and he's saying it's the drugs that kills, it's the crack, it's the drugs, it's the crack. It's not the drugs, it's not the crack, it's the people going after the crack that's killing people so they can get that fix again.
Yeah.
Is our people turned against our own people so that they can get that 6-minute high.
I mean, this is real life. You know what I'm saying? When I was a kid, we'd go to the park, Lego Park, South Dallas, play basketball. And I'll never forget it, man. We was out there playing basketball, and it was this crackhead that was coming up to the court. And it was another dude. We was playing basketball. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Nothing. I'm just playing basketball. And this dude comes out of nowhere trying to fight the dude to get some crack from him. And me and my cousin, we just playing basketball. We don't know what's going on. This dude gets an axe. And we ran. Yeah, we left.
That's how crazy.
We
man,
left.
I'll tell you, that's
it was bad, bruh. This is, south side of Dallas. You know what I'm saying? I seen that with my own eyes.
Right. It was here in San Diego. Nice, subtle San Diego in the 80s. It was crazy.
It was crazy. Down in the Four Corners. Had a whole different meaning down there.
The Four Corners of Death. It was truly the Four Corners of Death.
Truly.
Every weekend.
Every weekend.
And that's the big spot, the hot spots, but during the week too. But every weekend, somebody died on one of those four corners.
Dang.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. Go ahead. You got something? Nope. Okay. Let's go to this. Let's go to read that scripture again we just read in Deuteronomy 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 29.
Yeah.
And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
Go ahead. Jump to verse 31.
Verse 31.
Yeah.
Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face.
Yep.
And shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them.
So the effects again of the crack in our community is that it made it very difficult to even go to the grocery store. It was hard to even go to the stores in our community at that time, bro. The stores was dang near empty. I want let's jump back. Give me verse Verse 17. Nope, 16.
Verse 16.
Yeah.
Curse shalt thou be in the city.
Yep.
And curse shalt thou be in the field.
We was cursed in the city and cursed in the field because of these different things going on, because of the war on drugs, the so-called war on drugs, when they was actually importing the drugs into our community. Let's go back to the Miami video.
And he also play a game they call smash and grab.
Where the robbery occurred? What street?
When white motorists stop at a traffic light on 22nd Avenue, the youth smash the window of a locked door and grab anything of value inside.
Pause that thing. Pause that thing. These are the type of things that we had to do in order to feed ourselves. Smash and grab is what they called it. They would go in, somebody would stop at the light, they run up, smash the windows, and grab stuff out of it. You got something? Go ahead.
Yeah, they also would, on the buses, on the CTA buses in Chicago, they would grab your gold chains off your neck.
Snatch that thing. This is in the 80s.
Yes, it's in the 80s.
This is in the 80s they was doing stuff like that. Go back again to 1430, watch what they was doing.
And he also play a game they call smash and grab.
Where the robbery occurred? What street?
When white motorists stop at a traffic light on 22nd Avenue, the youth
Go ahead, keep going.
smash the window of a locked door and grab anything of value inside.
On 27th Avenue?
I was heading north on 27th Avenue when I...
Robberies here are not an everyday occurrence, but an every hour occurrence.
Pause it. It said robberies is not an everyday occurrence. It's an every hour occurrence in the 80s. This is what was going on in our neighborhoods. These are the type of things I personally witnessed in the projects of Dallas, Texas. Go ahead.
Our people were bugged out in the 80s. It was crazy. Like I said, because this drug has a very short effect on you. A long-term effect, but a short high effect on you.
Yep.
And they got to get more. So just like you said, it wasn't like a every day. It's like every minute somebody's getting jacked. Carjacking was big in the 80s.
Yep.
That's when the thing started.
Yep.
The smash and grabs, all that stuff.
Man, but the thing I really want us to remember is that it wasn't just the drugs. Like the drugs, they played a part in it, but the system was in place to create disruption. Like we just said, it was a system in place. They cut the funding to the black community.
Right.
They put the drugs in there, and then this is the outcome of it. More crime, more death. This is what happened. Go ahead, Uncle.
No, I was going to say I experienced that personally with my family.
You got smashed and grabbed on?
No, my brother sold my mother's car for $5 for crack.
For $5?
For $5. It was crazy
That's
time. It was a
crazy
time. Yes.
That is crazy. That is crazy. Like I said, I got an uncle, you know what I'm saying? Uncle Spodiotti, man. Uncle Spodiotti. That's some Dallas, Texas stuff, man.
That's his real name?
No, but
okay.
We called him Uncle Spodiotti, but he was on drugs. Whenever he would come around, it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nah, man, he tried to be around Uncle Spodiotti, man. And he had a girlfriend named Barbara.
Spodiotti and Barbara.
Spodiotti and Barbara, man.
You
ain't want to be around them, man. You ain't want to be around them with nothing of value because it would come up missing somehow. It would just randomly come up missing. Again, this is after the 80s, but my mother passed right after my daughter was born, right? And I had got a bunch of money from work. It was like cash, like they had gave me like a stack of cash, right? And so I'm back in Dallas for my mother's burial, and I had the money in my backpack. And I think Barbara went upstairs to go to the bathroom. I was over my grandmother's house. Barbara went upstairs to go to the bathroom. And then my baby mama, my ex-wife at the time, she was like, the money in your backpack is gone. I was like, what the heck? I had to go deal with Uncle Spodiotti and Barbara. They took the money out of my backpack for my mother's burial. They took the money out of my backpack, bro. Never forget that.
Did you get it back?
Yeah, I got it back. They said they didn't take it, but somehow it ended up in my baby mama's purse. Somehow it got in there. I don't know how it ended up in there, but it's crazy, bro. It was crazy. But yeah, man, they started in the 80s, though, using these drugs. All right, let's go to, go back to Matthew 24 again. Matthew 24, and I believe we was at
verse 6.
6. Go ahead.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6.
Yeah.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars.
The wars, again, like I said, was against us. The war was against our people. The war, it wasn't about, in the 80s, so they got things like the Cold War and Soviet, dealing with Soviet. They was almost about to go on the brink of nuclear war. All of this is what they say happened in the 80s. And again, these things were reported on the news. But the major war was against us. That's where the war was. Go ahead.
See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass.
Yep.
But the end is not yet.
But the end is not yet. Let's go to, I want the article on Justina Johnson, I think it was. Okay, it should say UPI. Give me that one. UPI Archives. Give me Deuteronomy 28. And I want to look at verse, let's look at verse 31.
Is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 31.
32, I'm sorry.
Verse 32.
Yeah.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people.
Okay.
And thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long. And there shall be no might in thine hand.
It was no might in our hands. How did this affect us in the 80s? Let's see. Let's see what happened in the 80s. This is an article from August 25th, 1989. Mother sentenced for giving babies cocaine. Now let's hear. See, it sounds horrible, right? You're like, this woman must be horrible. But let's see what happened. Sanford, Florida, a young mother prosecuted on a charge normally reserved for schoolyard dope dealers was sentenced Friday to probation and community service for giving cocaine to her babies through their umbilical cord. So they said because she used drugs that she gave the baby cocaine through her umbilical cord. They was able to actually prove that this scientifically doesn't happen. But that's what they put out back here. Let's watch. Let's read on. It says, Jennifer Johnson, 23 years old, was convicted of 2 counts of delivering a controlled substance to a minor. She admitted being a cocaine abuser and said that during both pregnancies, she smoked crack the night before and the day she gave birth. Seminole County Circus Eden ruled that the crime occurred in a few moments. The children were outside the womb, but still attached by the umbilical cord. So you got to understand what just happened, right? She's in the hospital having a baby. The police are outside the door. When the baby comes out, they arrest her for the cocaine being passed through the umbilical cord. I don't know if y'all understand what I'm saying. Do you get what I'm saying? Does it make sense what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. I'm just sitting here like, why were the police hanging around outside the hospital waiting for her to give birth?
Because it was these Edomites that was taking all these surveys of people, and then they was like using the information against them. They was like, yo, I need help. I'm dealing with drugs. I'm pregnant. She would go in for appointments, and they took that information and turned it against her. Because she was asking for help when you read the whole article. It was on that thing I told you about, too. Go ahead, Ananias.
No, that was it. I was just like, I'm sure this happens all the time.
Yeah.
This happens all the time. It's funny. I was just talking to my daughter yesterday and regarding drinking. She can't really drink. You can only drink so much before it's out of your system if you're breastfeeding. Like
right.
That, right.
Right.
So in this case here, she's doing cocaine and crack.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long that takes to get out of your system.
I don't know either. But the whole point is that they waiting to take the baby from the lady as she giving birth. They standing outside the birthing room and taking the baby as soon as it comes out. It's crazy. Again, the whole purpose, like we just heard the guy Lee Atwater say, was to disrupt the black community. That was the whole point. Read it again. Read Deuteronomy 28.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 32.
Yeah.
Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand.
It was nothing that sister could do. Let's read on where I'm at. Jennifer Johnson, 23, was convicted 2 counts of delivering a controlled substance to a minor. She admitted being a cocaine abuser and said that during both pregnancies, she smoked crack cocaine the night before and the day she gave birth. Seminole County Circuit Court Judge Eden ruled the crime occurred in the few moments the children were outside the womb but still attached by the umbilical cord. Doctors said both babies tested positive for cocaine in their system but are now healthy and living with relatives. Johnson has 2 other children who live with relatives and were not affected by her drug use. I think they ended up putting her on probation for like 15 years, bro. Put her on probation for 15 years and couldn't have nothing to do with them babies. She had, 200 years of community service. That's a lot of community service. Community service is horrible. It is horrible. I don't know if none of y'all ever experienced that. You know what I'm saying? You hear it, you think, oh, community service. I'm going to go to the library and read to old people, or I'm going to help old ladies cross the street. You know what I'm saying? No. That's not what it is. Them people you see out on the freeway with them orange vests on, that's pulling up stuff out of the ground or whatever that is, that's community service. And it's ugly. It's not fun. It's not fun. I think I had got like 10 hours. 10 hours, bro. That took me like 2 months to do.
She got 200.
She got 200. I got like 10, bro. It took me like 2 months to do 10 hours.
And 15 years probation.
And 15 years probation. So the whole system is rigged. Like she gonna end up in jail somehow. You know what I'm saying? Because it's hard to do 200 hours and work and check in the probation and all that stuff. Like that's dang near impossible. That's dang near impossible. Because it's only, the reason why it's so hard to do the hours, because it's only certain times of the day you can do the hours. You got to be there at this exact time, and they got to have something for you to do. And if they don't, then it just roll over to the next time. If they got too many people already there, like it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. 200 hours. Dang. Let's read on. Verse 33.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 33.
Yeah.
The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
Yep.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
And that's what happened. This crack epidemic oppressed and crushed us. And we're still feeling the effects of that thing to this day. But back in the 80s, that war on drugs, that war on crime, it came down on us hard, man. And let's go to Deuteronomy 28. And I think we'll read verse 30.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 30.
Yeah.
Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her.
Yeah.
Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof.
So what this is going into is that everything that we had as black men, it was stripped from us. To feed our kids, to take care of our wives, all those things were stripped from us. Go ahead. All right. Let's see. Ketchup as a vegetable. That just sounds crazy. They said ketchup was a vegetable. The ketchup as a vegetable controversy refers to a proposed United States Department of Agriculture Food and Nutritional Services regulations early in the presidency of Ronald Reagan that intended to provide more flexibility in meal planning to local school lunch administrators coping with National School Lunch Plan subsidiary cuts enacted by the omnibus regulations of 1980 and 81. So like I said, Reagan made all these cuts. So when they made all these cuts, they like, hey, we supposed to feed all these black people lunch at school. Well, they got to get a certain amount of meat, a certain amount of vegetables, a certain amount of dairy. That's what they supposed to get. Let's see what happened. It says the regulation allowed administrators the opportunity to credit items not explicitly listed that met nutritional requirements. While ketchup was not mentioned in the original regulation, pickle relish was used as an example of an item that could count as a vegetable. So when your kids went to school, they say how much, what, because you send them to school. And again, our people, man, in this dang on school system, they really believe that the system is designed to help them in some form or fashion, the education system. But anyway, this is where you get your free lunches and all that stuff from. It says, while ketchup was not mentioned in the original regulation, pickle relish was used as an example as an item that could count as a vegetable. A similar controversy arose in 2011 when Congress passed a bill prohibiting USDA from increasing the amount of tomato paste required to constitute a vegetable. The bill allowed pizza with 2 tablespoons of tomato paste to qualify as a vegetable. What the heck, man? Let's go back to the one you just pulled up. I was looking for that one earlier. The one you just pulled up where it had the one right above ketchup. You just pulled it up. And I said that's not it. All right, cool. It says Reagan calls for $41.1 billion in spending cuts for fiscal 1982. So again, like I was saying, what they will say is things like spending cuts. And our people would think, oh, this is good. Yeah, we gotta help the budget out. Spending cuts. Let's see what it did. President Reagan yesterday called for, this article was February 19th, 1981. President Reagan yesterday called for $41 billion in spending reduction in 1982 fiscal year. About $16 billion of this come from programs that primarily aid the poor. That's the poor. When I say the poor, it's talking about black people. Aid the poor, but would be taken. The administration maintained in ways that would not hurt the truly needy. Medicaid, food stamps, housing aid to the poor, and unemployment compensation all would be affected. So they cut $16 billion that was coming into our neighborhoods. They took $16 billion out, put the crack in, and said, let's see what happened.
I'm reading where it says, in ways that would not hurt the truly needy, but they cut Medicaid, food stamps, housing aid to the poor, and the unemployed compensation. So they cut all the stuff that they needed.
Yes.
So what qualifies as the needy?
That's truly needy. That's what I'm saying.
Needy.
So again, what also happened in the 80s, which I probably won't get to, is that inflation rose at crazy numbers. Yes. Like the value of the dollar, I think it was 16% or something like that. I was reading it earlier, but I didn't want to post it.
$100 is worth is $200 and something today. So it's basically
something like that.
Like
So
two
what?
and a half the time.
Right. So your dollar, right? If it was a 16% decrease in the buying power of your dollar, right? So say every dollar you have, just to make a round number, we'll do 20. So every dollar you had was actually worth 80 cents. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what was happening. So the money that you would make at the time would be offset by the food stamps or the Medicare. And I believe also at this time they started charging people that was living in low-income housing around 30% of whatever that housing project costs. So the numbers that we see now in reference to, say, your housing is $2,400 a month, you got to come up with like 25 to 30% of that. And that started back here in the 80s. Before that, it wasn't doing that. It was like, you poor, we're going to put you in a housing project and not charge you so you can try to figure out a way to get ahead. Back here, there was no way to get ahead. Inflation rose, the aid went down, and then they put crack in the communities. All of these things was designed to disrupt the black community. Go ahead,
Yeah, so in the banking system, that's where you would see double-digit savings interest rates.
Yep.
You know, they were 10, 15%, rates that you don't see now.
Back in the 80s, that's what you would get that much in savings just for putting your money in a savings account.
In a savings account. Now you get what? I think
two or something.
0.01%. No, it's 0.05% is a money market account right now.
Golly. That's crazy. Let's go back to where I'm going. So we just read about the cuts. Talked about crack. Let's talk a little bit more about crack. Let's go back to where we was at last, Hez. Verse 6.
Verse 6.
Yeah, go ahead.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6.
Yeah.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Mm-hmm. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass.
Go ahead.
But the end is not yet.
Mm-hmm.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines.
We read about the famines, like they cut the food aid. Go ahead.
And pestilences.
One of those main pestilences that we seen was the drug addiction. That's a health crisis. Dang, look at that. Federal inflation was 13.35%. That's crazy. That was for the year. 15%. Oh, no, that was banks. Prime money market. That's crazy, bro. Euro dollar. Man, that's crazy. Your money was decreasing in value. And that's why when I talk about home buying and stuff like that, I always try to tell people, like, look, the numbers, people always talk about, I wait for a market crash, I'm going to buy a house. Look, man, if the market crash, that's only a 10% adjustment. You dig what I'm saying? So if you buy a $700,000 house, 10% of that is $70,000. Guess what? You still paying $630,000. You're never gonna get back to the place where a house was $10,000, $20,000. That's not coming back. The Negro. That's not coming back. That's what they waiting for. When the house is like $100,000 again, I'm gonna get one. No, it's not happening. It's not ever happening. Yeah. Go ahead, hit play, man. This one, yeah, that's the one.
The new law of evolution in corporate America seems to be survival of the unfittest. Well, in my book, you either do it right or you get eliminated. In the last 7 deals that I've been involved with, there were 2.5 million stockholders who have made a pre-tax profit of $12 billion. Thank you. I am not a destroyer of companies. I am a liberator of them. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
Pause it.
Greed is right.
This man just said greed is good. This is what they was perpetuating in the 80s. Greed is good. This is on a movie, you know what I'm saying? But this what was going on. They was taking all the money out of our communities and it was flowing into theirs. That's why the scriptures tell you again, never trust your enemies. They will find a way to manipulate the market in ways where you can't win. You will only be oppressed and spoiled forever. Let's read that Matthew 24. What we just read again?
Verse 7.
Verse 6. Do it again.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6.
Yeah.
And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars.
There was an economic war against us. There was an epidemic war in reference to crack against us. There was a war in reference to us having, what else did we talk about? How they were feeding our children. That was all, these are war tactics. When you read about war, this is what you do. You destroy what they eat, what they buying power, their education system, their financial systems, their economic. You destroy all of that. That's war. Those are all war tactics. It wasn't to help us in no way. Go ahead, Anna.
It's funny because before we started the class, we was talking about GameStop and AMC and all this stuff, right?
BlackBerry.
It's BlackBerry. These are things that our people are taking advantage of right now.
Trying to.
And what are they doing? They're putting a stop to it so that we can't do it. But meanwhile, they still do it on a level that we can't achieve because we don't have the money to buy.
Don't even know how to buy a short.
Exactly. To control Tesla or control Microsoft or something like that, to buy so many shares of that. But we could buy the penny stocks.
Penny stocks, yep.
But they don't want us to do that.
Yep.
So it's crazy.
It's crazy. This is the same war. We still at war to this day. Go ahead.
See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Yep.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places.
So one of the pestilences that took place, pestilence is reference to the food shortages, right? And like we just read, what we was getting in the school system was we wasn't getting any vegetables or nothing like that. And then in the areas where the neighborhood markets was, those things was closing down, shutting down. You wasn't safe to go into those type of things. Again, like I said, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I don't know what it was like here in San Diego, but it was not safe to go to the store. At night, oh, heck no. You know what I'm saying? I remember drinking jungle juice. You know what I'm saying? You remember that? No. You never had jungle juice? See, he know what I'm talking about. Maybe that's just a Texas thing. Maybe it's just Texas. But we used to drink jungle juice for $0.25. You know what I'm saying? Well, hey, man. Some inside stuff, I guess.
What is the junk? Okay.
It's sugar water purple, pretty much.
Like, Kool-Aid.
Huh?
Kool-Aid.
Yeah, but we called it jungle juice.
Okay.
But it was sold in the hood. But go ahead. Go ahead, Hez.
All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
You shall be hated of all nations. You, black man, Hispanic man, you are hated of all nations, even in the 80s. What the war on crime, the war on drugs, those things was against us. Give me Nancy Reagan before I get off of here. Give me Nancy Reagan. It should say,
Just say no.
yeah, you see it. 80s and 90s advertising campaign. Give me that one. Yeah, just say no. Let's see what happened. Just say no. Just say no was an advertising campaign prevalent during the 1980s and early 90s as a part of U.S. war on drugs, aiming to encourage children from engaging in illegal recreational drug use by offering various ways of saying no. The slogan was created and championed by the First Lady Nancy Reagan during her husband's presidency. Let's see. So she would say it, and let's see who else she could say. Give me your boys, the Lakers. Let's see what the Lakers was doing.
America, everybody's scared. There's one problem, it's got to be clear. It's a war we're fighting across our land. It's here right now, so let's take a stand with the LA Lakers, and we're here to say that the drugs are killing every day. Cocaine and crack, it's all got to go. We got to learn to just say no. I'm Kareem, the captain of the team.
All right,
I
you
don't
can bother.
need drugs.
Please stop.
Please stop, man. Please stop.
We're going to get into the outfits of the 80s, too. But they up there backing this lady talking about just say no.
Just say no. Not knowing
what?
That we destroying ourselves.
Not just that.
Go
What
ahead.
was Magic Man, these dudes use more drugs than
Use
most of
more
the people.
drugs. That's what I'm saying. So hypocritical. I just watched a
I'm like,
documentary
are you
on that. They
serious
was
right
all
now?
using drugs.
Right.
All them dudes. Yeah. Go back to Matthew 24.
Verse 9.
Yeah.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 9.
Yeah.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
Oh, go ahead.
And then shall many be offended.
Then shall many be offended. The ones that was offended was us. We was fighting a war against ourselves. Instead of finding a way to help each other and help our people, it was let's criminalize each other. Let's hate each other. We hated each other. Read that scripture again.
And then shall many be offended.
Yep.
And shall betray one another.
Yep.
And shall hate one another.
And shall hate one another. We was hating each other. Instead of trying to find a way to help each other, we let the system that they put in place make us think negatively about each other. You know what I'm saying? I like I said, I'm talking about my Uncle Spodiote, but I remember the thoughts I had like, that dude crazy. And that's what my mama told me. That's her brother. You know what I'm saying? Stay away from him. It was no effort to get them fixed, to get them corrected. You know what I'm saying? Give me the other commercial. Where's the one with the egg? Gotta see that. You gotta see that. You gotta see that, man. This is your brain. Let me get that one. That's official 1980s right there. This is 1980s. Don't spoil it for them. Some of these people ain't seen this yet. This is official 1980s stuff. We schooling the youth right now. You know what I'm saying? We schooling them. This commercial ran every day, nonstop, everywhere, every cartoon. This was everywhere. Go ahead.
Is there anyone out there who still isn't clear about what doing drugs does? Okay, last time. This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
That was the 80s right there, man. That's official right there. You know what I'm saying? During the 80s, these are the type of things that was put out there for our people, and it created a self-hatred for each other. You know what I'm saying? Because this was in between every cartoon you saw. That commercial was right there. This is your brain on drugs. And then you see your uncle and your aunt and them doing crack, and you like, oh, man. Their brains is fried. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
And on all of the basketball channels, when we,
Yeah.
you know, NBA,
yeah. It was everywhere, bruh. That thing was everywhere. All right, so it say we shall be, what did it say? Read that again.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 10.
Yeah.
And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another.
And shall betray one another. Go ahead.
And shall hate one another.
And shall hate one another. All right. Let's go to self-destruction. Self-destruction. Click play on that thing when you're ready. Boom. 80s.
We all agree tonight, all of the speakers have agreed that America has a very serious problem. Not only does America have a very serious problem, but our people have a very serious problem. America's problem is self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction. You're headed for self-destruction. Self-destruction.
Well, today's topic, self-destruction. It really ain't the rap audience that's bugging. It's one or two suckers, ignorant brothers, trying to rob and steal from one another. You get caught in the mid. So to crush that stereotype, here's what we did.
So, again, the whole point of this, again, is that we see that Reagan cut the money coming in, all right? The drugs was brought in. It was a group of our people that was trying to find a way to get us back on track. Guys like KRS-One, Kool Moe Dee, Latifah's on here, I believe, Light's on here, right? And these things we would hear and be like, yes, okay, we gonna. He said, it's just a few of us. When you listen to it, he said, it's just a few of us. But they perpetuate these images to make us think that this is everybody. And you know what the government said? They said, you know what? We got to find a way to destroy them. Then comes the gangster rap. 87, 88, in comes the gangster rap. Read that scripture again.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 10.
Yeah.
And then shall many be offended.
Yep.
And shall betray one another. And shall hate one another.
And shall hate one another. The everything about what we just was watching, if y'all, young people don't remember this, well, some of y'all wasn't born in the 80s. But the purpose of the music at that time was to uplift, to encourage, to push our people in the right direction. Go to that. Give me Colossians chapter 3, verse 16.
The book of Colossians chapter 3 and verse 16.
Yeah.
Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom.
Yep.
Teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns.
So we would teach each other and admonish one another in our songs. That's what we would do back in the 80s. And comes the gangster rap. Go ahead.
And spiritual songs. Singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord.
Singing with grace in our hearts, trying to get our people back on track. That was the whole purpose of songs like that. And a lot of the rap early, that was the point. That was the purpose. They was talking about, what's the song called? The Message. You know what I'm saying? Songs like that, where it was like, let me figure out how to get our people fixed. Let me figure out how to encourage our people, right? I know, Ananiah, you said you was a big Public Enemy fan, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, so like KRS-One, Public Enemy, and it's crazy. Even Flavor Flav.
Even Flavor Flav, yeah.
Those guys, what they did, they was putting the message out. They would, it would come across hard if you're not really listening to the lyrics. These guys are really pretty much telling you everything that's happening in the neighborhoods. Try to give you awareness. Awareness rap is pretty much what it was.
Yep.
And then it transitioned into NWA, trying to degrade our people again, talking about, the women, talking about selling the drugs, not people being abused by the drugs, but talking about all the negative aspects of our society.
Encouraging the negative aspects of our society. Because there's a difference between reporting the negative aspects of our society and encouraging that behavior. You know what I'm saying? Let's go to that. Let's go to 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 23. And again, if you get a chance to listen to the lyrics of that song, man, Self-Destruction, like that was really trying to put a good message out there for our people, so they wouldn't cause self-destruction, because it was already a bunch of things against us. Like we just said, the Reaganomics, what they call Reaganomics of the time, the drugs of the time, right? Those things were against us already. So we said, okay, we can't self-destruct what do we do? Go ahead and read that.
The book of 1 Samuel, chapter
16
and verse 23.
Yep.
And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took an harp and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him.
So you got to understand, this music that they was putting out, it had a certain spirit on it. But then in comes the gangster rap. Guess what kind of spirit it put on us? A spirit of anger, a spirit of violence. Those different things came in with the gangster rap. The music played a big part in where we got to in the 80s. The destruction of ourselves in the 80s. Go ahead.
One of the things that they were doing in the 80s, they were doing backmasking and subliminal programming. I don't know if you guys know what backmasking is.
Go ahead, tell me about it.
So backmasking is when they would put a destructive message, but they would play it backwards in the music.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And if you turn the music backwards, you would actually hear what they were trying to say. So, you know.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
That's crazy. Go to... so we already see that the food was against us, the drugs was against us, the economics was against us. Now they turn the music against us. Let's go to where it say premature deaths. Premature deaths. And let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Let's start at verse 28.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 28.
Yeah.
The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness.
Because the blind, like the blind was groping at darkness. Go ahead.
And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore.
So these curses, the blindness of the curses that was put on us, because again, the music initially was good, but then it transitioned, and then something happened. Come on, give me that article where it say the deaths. Premature deaths. There you go. All right, cool. It says in the United States, a generation of young black males ages 15 to 24 are prematurely dying from homicide and suicide. Between 1950 and 2010, the average death rate for a young black male due to homicide was 81.7% per 100,000. 81% per 100,000. So now we got drugs, right? I forgot. Let's go back to that too. Let's go back. They have mandatory minimums too. Go back to that. Don't forget the mandatory minimums. So we got 81% of us dying in drugs. I mean, of murder. The music is infecting our brain to create violence against each other. We got bad foods coming into us from school. We got drugs. Let's see the mandatory minimums as well. Bring high cost and low return. It says federal drug sentencing. Federal drug sentences increased enacted in 1980s and 90s have not reduced drug use or, what does it say? Recidivism. More than 95,000 federal prisons are serving for drug-related offenses, up to 5,000 in the 1980s. I mean, in 1980. Changes in drug crime patterns, laws enforced practice played a role in this growth. But federal sentencing laws enacted during the 1980s and 90s also have required more defenders of go to prison and stay there much longer than 3 decades ago. Should say something about the 80s. Scroll down to more imprisoned, higher costs. Okay, Congress increased criminal penalties for drug offenders during the 1980s to a lesser extent in the 1990s in response to the mounting public concern about drug-related crime. So like we just said, like KRIS-1 was saying, is that a few people was doing this, but they were perpetuated through the news, and now we all think that way about each other. Like we read in Matthew 24, we're going to be haters of each other. We're going to deliver each other up for prison. That's what we was doing. We was like, man, it was more black people than anybody out there saying, yeah, let's get the crime out of here. Let's raise the mandatory minimums. What was the guy's name? Charlie Rangel. He was one of the leaders of pushing that. It's a black man from New York. 1995. In a 1995 report examining the history of federal drug laws, the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that drug abuse in general, crack cocaine in particular, had become a public opinion and in members' minds a problem of overwhelming dimensions. The nation's violent crime rate surged 41% from 83 to 1991 when it peaked at 758 violent offenses per 100,000 residents. So we was dying at an alarming rate, right? From these ages, it say 758 violent offenses. I think it was a chart. Let's scroll down where it say probation. Probation has all but disappeared as a sanction for drug offenders. In 1980, federal courts sentenced 26% of convicted drug offenders to probation. By 2014, the probation had fallen to 6%, with judges sending nearly all drug offenders to prison. So we lose a lot of our people to the drugs themselves. Then we lose them to those that was selling drugs. We lose those. And then we lose another number on top for killing each other. So I want to look at those numbers. I want to look at those numbers and figure out where we at real quick. And I'm going to finish this up. All right. Let's go to last one. Give me the AIDS video. AIDS was another big one in the 80s as well. Click on that. It should be like the first 2 minutes or so. Give me Deuteronomy 28, verse 20.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, and whereby thou hast forsaken me.
So because of the wickedness of our doings, all these things came upon us. Right? Jump down to Egypt, where it say the botch. It should be 20.
Verse 27.
Yeah, 27.
The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed.
There cannot be healed. And that's what was going on with AIDS. There's nothing we could do. That sounded exactly like AIDS. It was a botch. It was these giant scars on your body. It was nothing you could do. Hit play on that thing.
It's mysterious, it's deadly, and it's baffling medical science. Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Once thought to affect only promiscuous homosexual males, AIDS is now spreading in epidemic proportions to other segments of the population.
If the trends continue as they are, I think we can predict that the acquired immune deficiency syndrome is a highly fatal illness likely to remain with us for the next decade.
Tonight, we'll focus on this new disease, and we'll talk live with 3 scientists.
You can pause it. So the Lord put this thing on us and our communities. All right, let's pull up the tables now. We're going to pull up some charts real quick. Give me the statistics on HIV real quick. It should be table 1. Yep. All right, so it says blacks and Hispanics. This is a chart on, it says table 1, number of percentage of persons with AIDS by selected characteristics and period of report. So we're going to scroll down to where it say blacks and Hispanics right there, right? So in the 80s, blacks and Hispanics that had AIDS was 12,700. And then by the end of the 80s, it was 63,000. And Hispanics, we had 35,000. So we're looking at around 100,000 people with AIDS during the 80s, right? All right, now let's look at violent crime. We see that how the music affects us. Let's go back to Proverbs chapter 18 real quick. I want verse 4. The music and the violence, how that affected us. Go to the I think it was premature death again. I want y'all to get that number as well. I think it was called premature death. Proverbs 18, start at verse 4 here.
Is the book of Proverbs, chapter 18 and verse 4.
Yeah.
The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters.
Yes.
And the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes.
See, we don't understand that the music in which we put out, that music, how they spoke, call it for strokes, meaning that people would die based off of what people would say. You hear this music and it affects you in a certain type of way. I think I told y'all this before. I was listening to I think it was Trey Songz or something, and it was like he said like lobster and shrimp and a glass of Moscato. I started drinking Moscato like that night. I was like, I'm gonna go to the store and get some Moscato. I'm on my way. A lot of y'all think y'all
left the lobster and shrimp alone.
Nah, I didn't get the lobster and shrimp, but I was on the Moscato the next day. You know what I'm saying? I think Kanye put out a song. He said he was beasting on the Riesling. What's Riesling? All right, let me go get some of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are different things. The music affects you. Y'all laughing at me. Y'all doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Y'all doing the same thing. It should say premature deaths, bro. Did you bring that one up? There you go. That's the one. All right. So this is going into the mandatory minimums and how this affected us, the mandatory minimums. So as you can see right there under blacks and Hispanics, right? In 1991, the end of the 80s, we had 1,181 prisoners in jail that was black. We had 392,000 Hispanics in prison. So you see we got what? That's like a total of 1.5 million in jail. Okay, now we got that. Now let's go to the next chart. The next chart right after that. It should have been, what's that one? I want y'all to see these numbers and how this thing really affected us as a people. Homicides. Should be the homicide one. It's page 11. It say page 11 right below it. Cool. All right, we're going to page 11 on this chart. And it's going to tell us how many of us were killed for violent offenses, right? Right there after 1991. So after 1991, the victimization rate for blacks fell until 1999. Oh, I'm sorry, it's the one above it. The victimization rate for blacks peaked in the early 90s, reaching a high of 39.4 homicides per 100,000. So per 100,000, we was losing about 40,000 of us every year per 100,000. So that's 40,000. So 40,000 times 10 years, what's that? Like 4 million? Is that right? Somebody do some math. 40,000 times 10.
400 million.
400 million?
Oh, 400,000.
400,000? 400,000? Okay, 400,000. So now we got 400,000 that died. Okay, now did we get AIDS yet? How many of us died from AIDS? Give me the one HIV. I did that one? So we got AIDS, we got violent crime, and we got, what was the other one? Jail. Did we get the jail rate? We did the jail? How much was the jail? 1.5. All right, so how many of us did we lose in the 80s? Let's add all those numbers together. This ain't even including crack. Let's just figure out how many of us we lost in the 80s. It's crazy. Need my calculator? 400,000 plus 1.5 million. That's 1.9. And then AIDS. It's like 2 million something. Let's go back to Matthew 24 one more time. Start at verse 3. Start at verse 4. The homicide rate, I think it was, that number should have been 400,000. 400,000. You got 4 million? I don't know. I got like 2 million in my head. Yeah, 2 million. I don't know what kind of math you're doing over here. 1.5 plus 400,000. And I think for the AIDS, it was on like 30,000. So it was like 35,000. So, yeah. So it's like 2 million of us died. Read that, Matthew 24 and verse 4.
Matthew chapter 24 and verse 4.
Yeah.
And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you.
Yep.
For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many.
So they would come in saying, war on drugs, war on crime. Like, man, we should listen to these people. They got our best interests at heart. Go ahead.
And ye shall hear of wars.
But at the same time, when they coming in to help us, you hearing about wars. Go ahead.
And rumors of wars.
And rumors of wars. There should be a war out there. It should be, they militarize the police at this time. Go ahead.
See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines.
We experienced famines in the 80s, right? Go ahead.
And pestilences.
We experienced AIDS in the 80s. Go ahead.
And earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted.
They created something called mandatory minimums for drug offenses in the 80s. Read that again.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted.
And the school system was destroyed in the 80s. They cut the income rates, and the inflation rates rose. At the same time, they planned this game with the money that we're not included in. Read that again.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted. And shall kill you.
And say what?
And shall kill you.
And shall kill you. Like I said, crack came into the communities. AIDS came into the communities. They put the gangster rap into the communities. And we were killing ourselves through the systems that they put in place for us. Go ahead. Go ahead. You finna say something tonight?
Yeah, I was going to say, the other thing they put in place was the 3-strike rule.
3-strike rule.
The 3-strike rule is like you get one major offense, and then any other little offense, you're in jail for life. So they just put us away.
Dang. Go ahead, read that again.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
Go ahead.
And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another.
We was betraying one another. We turning each other in. We turning on each other. We killing each other. We shooting each other over corners, over the drugs, over where we want to sell the drugs at. We killing each other through promiscuity, through homosexuality. Go ahead.
And shall hate one another.
And shall hate one another. You got something, Aunt?
Yeah, and they were doing that through dropping guns off in our communities.
Dropping the gun. That's what I'm saying. It ain't like we went and bought guns. We couldn't buy guns. Half of us went to jail, so you can't even buy guns. Read that again.
And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another.
And that's what happened to the 80s. We really embraced that hate towards each other in the 80s, man. And this is all part of the curses. And, you know, some of us are the products, and we survived the 80s, and a lot of us lost a lot of brothers and sisters and family in the 80s. Go ahead, Ananias.
So in the beginning, they called this, what they call it, an epidemic, right? We're dealing with a pandemic. Does anybody know what the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic? When you think of like think of an earthquake. The epicenter of an earthquake is centralized. Pandemic is across the nations, right? Go to Deuteronomy 28 and verse 37.
Dang. You're right. You're on point.
Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 37. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall lead thee.
So we are an astonishment to those people because, like I said, it's an epidemic. It's centralized here in America. You don't hear about no crack going on in other countries.
Nope.
All this madness going on in the other countries, it's all centralized here. And we are an astonishment. When you think an astonishment, it's like a WTF moment. Like, what the hell is wrong with these people? These supposed to be the greatest people on the planet, but look at them.
Look at them. It's crazy. Let's go to Judith. Let's go to Judith right quick. Judith chapter 5 and verse 20. Again, man, don't forget. Don't think that this stuff was all by accident. The drugs and the guns came in and they cut the funding, and at the same time, you know, AIDS came in. I think this was just a random. It was random negative. Read that.
Is the book of Judith, chapter 5 and verse 20. Now therefore, my Lord and governor, if there be any error in this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them.
So they put put the sin in our communities. Why? To ruin us. Like it said when Lee Atwater was talking. He said to disrupt. They use code words like war on drugs, war on crime, to disrupt our community. And the outcome was this. We were in ruin in the 1980s. You know what I'm saying? I don't got nothing else unless y'all got something else. I'm done. We lost 2 million brothers and sisters in the 80s to drugs, violence, and it was a lot of it was self-inflicted. A lot of it was self-inflicted. Yeah, they put the drugs there, but we don't got to use them. Yeah, they put the music out, you know what I'm saying, and perpetuated those things. But we can say we can do something better. All right, Israel. So with that, I'm going to say shalom.
We used to scream black power while heroin was pushed. But at the end of the day, nothing's in vain. IUIC has been given a vision. The tents of Judah has risen. Many has attempted the mission, minor murmuring, omitting, and missing the mark. Just reading that he had the flame of fire in his eyes gave us the spark. We on Paul's mission. We out on the road, purple and gold, from Mexico, Cuba, Haiti, Ghana, Sierra Leone. 144,000 boots banging, concrete crackling. These are how men repented at heart. The scriptures is proof. IUIC, we deliver the truth.